Johnson City is a fast-growing community, and most people hope it doesn't outgrow the charm and culture that make it a great place to live and work. Hello, I'm Mark Hyman. I'm the National Investigative Correspondent for News 5 and Fox 39. I'm also the host for tonight's very special edition of Your Voice, Your Future Town Hall series. We're live in the Langston Center here in downtown Johnson City. Thank you at home for joining us. Now, we've got a great panel of experts that are going to discuss this topic and a fine audience here who are going to ask a lot of questions. But before we get started, let's take a look at how we got here.
Washington County, Tennessee is projected to surpass Sullivan County as the most populated county in the region within the next 2 decades.
60,000 more people moving to the Johnson City Metro by 2040.
How do we grow in a way that has the least amount of impact on our community in a negative way?
This has been farmland all of our lives. 58 years of my life, it's been farmland.
The city is upside down on housing at about 5,000 units.
I'd like to see some more living spaces in the downtown area.
Johnson City Commissioners will vote next week on a proposed 500-home development in Gray.
We should be able to accommodate that annexation. I'm more concerned about continued annexations and growth and how we prepare and plan for those.
An overturned tractor trailer backing up traffic on Interstate 26 eastbound.
Suncrest Drive is a mess. But yet there has been nothing done over the course of the last 5 or 6 years.
Another crash nearly the same location also backed up traffic this morning.
Our school systems are totally overrun as it is.
Very expensive endeavor to build a new high school. There might be some other options.
Horizon 2045, Johnson City's next long-term strategic plan.
It's a great opportunity to say these are the challenges of the particular area of this study area that I live in.
Joining us this evening, Whitney Hodges, Urban Planning Consultant with Johnson City. Steve Barnett, Superintendent, Johnson City Schools. Michelle Davis, President, Northeast Tennessee Association of Realtors. And Joe Grandy, Mayor, Washington County. Our live audience will be tossing a lot of questions in the direction of our panel of experts, but you at home can also be a part of this important conversation. Fox 39 weekend anchor Caleb Kearney is manning our social media desk. He'll explain how you can be part of the conversation. Caleb?
Yeah, Mark, and this is driven by audience questions here tonight, and it's also driven by your questions at home. We want to hear from you, and the way you can do that is through social media. So if you want to submit your questions, here's how you do that. Right now we're streaming our event on our Facebook page, the WCYB Facebook. You can just comment your question right below that, and you can also send us your questions via X, formerly Twitter. Just tag at News5WCYB and use the hashtag Your Voice, Your Future, and I'll try to get to as many of those questions as we can. Mark?
Thanks, Caleb. Panelists, I hope you're ready because we have a lot of people with a lot of questions on their mind. Let's start with this young lady. Please tell us who you are and what is your question?
My name is Michelle Treese, and my question is this. I'm concerned about our homeless population. Johnson City's population in general has increased a lot. We have about a 52% poverty rate. And I want to know, what are we actually doing to help our homeless population?
Whitney, that's got to be part of the conversation, right?
It will be. So one of the projects that I'm working on is it's called the Horizon 2045 Growth Management Plan for Johnson City. And housing and homelessness has come up a lot in our stakeholder groups, as well as through citizen input. So there will be policies from this document that we hope to put into place that will help with that. I think you're asking probably a little bit more what on the ground now. And what I would say is the city has hired a homeless coordinator, which it will be helpful as far as getting people who are chronically homeless into certain services. So that's a new initiative that I believe started maybe December. So that's something new and different than what we've been doing in the past. But a lot of it comes down to affordability. How will we be providing affordable options, attainable options for our community?
Steve, people who are homeless don't become homeless at age 18 or 21. Their children are part of this equation, right?
That's correct.
And what about the role of the schools in terms of dealing with that today and going into the future?
We have a homeless coordinator who works with our schools, homeschool coordinators in schools. We added an assistant homeless coordinator. They work with community resources to help students, children of families that are homeless, and to help find them housing, find them food, clean clothing, places where they can get services. We've had that in our community and our school system for about a decade or more.
We're back to the live audience. Please tell us who you are and what is your question?
My name is Beth Simpson. So piggybacking a little bit on the last question, in this increasingly tight housing market, it's hard for newcomers and even young adults trying to get into the housing market to find affordable housing. So what, looking forward, is the city looking to do to make that housing more available?
I want to start off, actually, before we move that, I want to bring Michelle in the conversation because you're in that business of moving people into homes, and it's a little more challenging today than it was just 2 years ago, right?
Yes. Last year, for 2023, we had about 1,104 homes sold in the Johnson City area. And that was down. Our sales were down last year by 11%, but it's not because of buyers not interested in moving here. It's because of inventory problems. Right now, we sit at 1.6 months worth of inventory out there. To make it even a neutral market, you got to get to about 4 to 6 months worth. So, and the smallest range of inventory is in that affordable housing. Anything from 100,000 up to 399,000, which is your first-time home buyers in your workforce housing market. We barely even have a month's worth of inventory for that. So you've got a lot of pent-up energy. When one of those homes hit the market, what happens is all these buyers that are waiting for it hit, and it just gets swallowed up. So it's definitely an area that we need to focus on.
And even before you move to the future, it's already being impacted because the Federal Reserve's prime rate is 5.5%, which means those great mortgages that people enjoyed just a few years ago of 2.5% are not here today. It makes it more difficult, right?
That is correct, yes. They have announced recently that they're not going to lower interest rates probably until fourth quarter. They'll reevaluate it then. But, I mean, even with that, we still have a lot of active buyers.
And I just want to continue that thought a little further. As if people don't have the funds to purchase because of higher mortgage rates, then it also slows the availability of homes because builders aren't out there providing more resources, correct?
Correct. And a big part of it, I mean, what has happened with builders, I think, we're not getting a lot of prefab homes built anymore, or site-built, quick site-built homes anymore. They're more custom building right now. And the reason why is you've got so many buyers that have said, oh, there's not homes for us right now. I'm going to buy a piece of land and get a custom built. Well, they make more money price per square foot on custom. So I encourage contractors to get back out there and do planned development more and get into those type of building. It would help greatly.
And Whitney, that's the here and now, but what about the future?
In the future, what we're looking for are ways to encourage where would we need density? Because I think one of the things that's really important is to have different housing types for all the people that want housing. So whether you want to farm, there needs to be available land for that. Whether you want to be a dense city dweller, there needs to be opportunities for that as well. So that's what we're going to be focusing on, especially towards that workforce attainable range where we can influence policies. But the affordable, when it comes to housing, there are so many factors because it can be land cost, construction cost, financing, all of these things. But what we will aim to do in this growth management plan is to look at what are we doing in our own zoning codes, building codes that might be hindering some of that, and to make sure that we're, being open to all of the opportunities.
And I want to continue this conversation a little further and bring in the mayor, because Mr. Mayor, not only are there issues regarding housing, but also jobs are part of this process. I suspect you have the Tennessee Office of Economic Development on speed dial, but do they have Washington County on speed dial? Are they calling you saying, we have an opportunity to bring more businesses here to provide more jobs?
Well, actually, we have folks from that division that are right here in our community. Just met with them this week with our Industrial Development Board. And so there's a lot of issues with that. You know, our unemployment rate is way low, but you know, the folks that are actually active in the workplace is also very low. In fact, it's the lowest in the state, and the state is very low compared to the national average. So, workforce activity, people out there active looking for jobs that are available in age range to be in the market are not seeking jobs right now. So it's a big deal. To touch on what Whitney was saying just a few minutes ago, you hear discussions about tiny houses, for example, these 400 square foot individual home. And I think today we don't have a zoning that would support that. So these are the types of things in dealing with our planning departments and our zoning departments that we really need to think about going forward, whether that's an opportunity for folks here or not. We don't really know because they're not in the market yet. But last year, really for the last couple of years, we've had a national builder in this market for the very first time ever, which has been different for us. All of our existing builders stayed busy doing their traditional building, and this national builder became in Washington, rural part of Washington County, outside of the city, was the largest developer and builder with over $17 million worth of investment just last year. So we had a record year in permits, 330 single-family home permits. But the interesting thing about that, even with this national builder in the market, creating homes at a little bit lower price point than some of our local builders have been able to do. The starter home, what we used to consider a starter home, is just slightly under $300,000, which is mind-boggling to me to think, you know, that's the place where they are. But again, even with this national builder in the market creating a lower entry point home, the average price of our homes went up over $62,000 last year. So a lot of activity and a lot of change in the housing market, but I think, you know, we need to think a little bit out of the box if we're going to work with the homeless folks and help them get into some sort of sustainable housing.
We're back to the live audience, and after we get your question, we're going to find out what our audience at home thinks, because I've been told already the producer's saying they're fired up on this topic. So please tell us who you are and what is your question.
I'm Bob Fuller, and with the increased population growth in the region, and there are large projections for that, my concern is what I'm going to call infrastructure, and examples of my concerns are the hospitals already at capacity, whether it's ER or hospital rooms. The waste management facility, as I like to call it, is going to fill in the next 5 to 7 years, let's say. The water and sewer is really, if you don't look at averages, but look at maximum flow days, okay, in any kind of outage, they're close to capacity. What is being done to address those concerns? Because they're only going to increase our needs on that infrastructure elements.
Whitney?
Well, as we look to the future, I will say that Iris, the city has negotiated a contract to extend Iris Glen about another 20 years. But we're looking at our water and sewer department actively actively seeks growth. And so putting those capital improvement plans into place, they're already doing that. So there will be more projects as we have more population. And that's kind of where this planning process of where we've involved different, what I'm going to call stakeholders, which is really just the city department, to be involved and make sure that they're also in the conversation when it comes to population or land use and providing what the water supplies that we need for that.
And to follow up, Whitney, this is a great opportunity for the public to have comments and questions during this, we'll call it the vision phase, as we're looking at what's next. But there are some critical periods during this planning where there may be some hard questions to be asked and answered. Can you give us a sense of when we might expect that would occur?
Yes, actually, I would love to plug that there will be a community input session at Indian Trail. It'll be February 29th from 5:30 to 7, and that we want as many people as we can to kind of come and talk about how we want to grow. Our first community session was here at the Langston Center, and we asked, what do you love about Johnson City? What would you change? What are kind of your priorities? We've heard these are priorities. How would you rank them? And that kind of data will be on our website, or the Growth Management Plan's website, so you can kind of access that. So it's not just because there was one community input session. We really hope that as this plan keeps going along, that more people will come out and participate.
Our live audience here has already asked several great questions, and our panelists have some great comments and responses to those. But the producers tell me that our audience at home is also excited to be part of this conversation. Let's check in with our social media anchor. Caleb, what do you have for us?
Yeah, Mark, folks are asking a lot of questions in regard to the home building and the housing part of this conversation. They're asking things in a kind of a different angle on that issue. Let's take a look at some of these. Amanda says, our schools are at capacity now. They have no room for growth anytime soon. Stop rezoning agricultural areas. It's starting to look like developers are getting special treatment for giving special treatment. Victoria says, I wish they'd stop buying up all the farmland to build cookie cutter homes. I really hope people stop moving here in the coming years. And Lori says, the ones responsible for the D.R. Horton invasion is not Horton. They will build cookie cutters so close together. It is the zoning department and elected officials who allow a 2,000 square foot on a 50 by 110 lot. These numbers are examples. Only the zoning office know the allowed home site sizes. Why are they approving this? I've lived in Dallas and have never seen such hodgepodge randomness, no continuity. So that's some of the things that people are thinking right now is about the farmland that is being used for so many houses in some areas. Mark?
Before we go back to the live audience, Joe, I want to bring you back into the conversation because one of the comments I heard from some of our audience members before we even began the program was the discussion of annexation by the city of some of the county property. What goes into that process? Because there's concerns that perhaps it isn't as organized as it should be. Tell us, is it?
So annexation today is strictly by request. There was a lot of time in the past. I've sat on the Johnson City Regional Planning Commission for 6 years, and in those days in the early 2000s, the city would annex, by design. But that law, the state statute changed 3 years ago, so that now only annexations can be made into the city where a landowner requested. So you got to own the property, comes in, you're requested to be annexed, comes in with whatever zone is going to be appropriate for the type of development that's anticipated for that request. And, whether it's, the comment that was, just offered, whether it's accurate or not, the zoning is managed by the city or county or town planners, whether it's Jonesboro, Johnson City, or in rural part of Washington County. And it's just based on the type of structure. Some developments are multifamily, some developments are single family, and there's a variety of zones for a developer to choose as a request.
Michelle, I'd like to bring you back into the conversation because I'd like to give you an opportunity to respond to the comment about cookie cutter homes. Frankly, the public needs every variety of home that's out there, right? Small, big, McMansions to small houses, whatever's out there, right?
Correct. And the truth of the matter is free market, right now, we're setting from $400,000 to $1 million. we're setting in that 4 to 6 month range. So it's a neutral. You can negotiate those pretty well. We're needing those smaller price point homes. And he's correct that it's $270,000 is our median average in Johnson City. So that's what a first-time home buyer is looking at to purchase a home. And to achieve that, you're going to have those style homes as well.
That's the reason why they call them starter homes, right?
Correct.
We're back to the live audience. Sir, please tell us who you are. What's your question?
Yeah, Ed DiPolo, Commander, American Legion Post 24 here in Johnson City. I'd like to know what the city and the county are doing to target the homeless veteran population. Homeless veterans make up over 20% of the homeless population. What are you doing to set aside, or what are you doing in the way of some out-of-the-box thinking to take care of our veterans?
Whitney, there's a relationship that must be established with the Veterans Administration for part of this process, correct?
Correct. I wish that I could answer that question for you, but I don't know that I am the best one to answer such a question with specificity. But I can certainly put you in touch with some people who can get that answered for you.
One of the things that got this process started within the last couple of years was a collaboration between the Salvation Army, the City of Johnson City, and Washington County, each contributing funds to build a structure that would assist veterans coming out of the VA transitioning into permanent housing. And one of the issues with veterans is they have the opportunity to receive housing vouchers, and they're available in Washington County. But one of the things that is required in order for them to qualify for the vouchers, them to be stabilized in some sort of a housing situation for at least 6 months. And so the Salvation Army today in the process of building, I believe it's a 15-unit facility specifically for veterans to provide them an opportunity to be in a safe place while they qualify for these vouchers.
Steve, I want to bring you back into the conversation. And as this community grows, there's going to be greater need for more schools, more buildings. As a parent of public school students, as someone who's come from a family of teachers, I've often wondered, can we be more creative in how we build our schools so they're a little more multifunction, maybe a little more used to a community? We tend to think of schools often sitting vacant during the summer. That may or may not be the case. And I also appreciate we may not want to be able to co-locate a library with the school because you have to keep a fence between adults who aren't related to the school system. But are thoughts being given to about creating new opportunities or new ways of utilizing school buildings so we get the greatest use, not just for the students, but for the community overall?
Well, it's interesting. We use the schools about, if you go to the high school, it's used 12 months of the year. If you go to our middle schools and elementary schools, because of summer school, we're in there 11 months out of the year. And we do have some community events that occur there. And part of the problem with that is the safety issues of that combining community with schools. So we have to be really strategic about that. It's usually invited programming that we have. For instance, we had a program this weekend for students, families of English language learners at a school on a Saturday. So we do that type of programming. We've been looking at that. Adding pre-K into our schools is really important. I think that's a great improvement to our schools, but that takes up space. And it takes that space in the elementaries, but we hope it pays off as they go through elementary and middle. And if I could real quick address the question or the comment about us being full, the high school is about 2,400 students right now. It's a large high school. Depending on your community you come through, there are schools that are larger in the state of Tennessee, but it is a large school. We still have some capacity at the high school. We have a growth study. Part of the growth study, really, with the city, we're doing a master plan at Science Hill High School. By moving to a 2 middle school model, to allow students to stay in elementary an additional year, we actually opened up 600 seats at our middle schools. So we have 300 seats available at Indian Trail, 300 seats available at Liberty Bell. Our elementaries, some are getting close to capacity, Lake Ridge in particular, but we have planned for Town Acres Elementary School to come online 2026 or 2027, which will increase that school's capacity by about 300 students. So we do have capacity, and our board and our commission have really worked well together to plan and to make sure that we're looking toward that growth. We started adding about 100 students a year in about 2010, and that's continued. So we're still we're able to look at that, and hopefully through capital improvements and smart management, we're able to keep up with the growth.
We're back to the live audience. Please tell us who you are and what is your question?
Hi, I'm Chris Grizzle. I'm a senior at ETSU. I don't commute to school. I come from Morristown, but I stay on campus. I have a lot of friends that do commute to school, though. And in the past couple of years, the student population has hit record numbers, and parking has not been exactly excellent for some students. And I was wondering what's going to be done about that in the future for students that commute to ETSU.
Commuting is always a big issue, isn't it, Whitney? No matter where you are in America, commuting is an issue.
It is.
And parking.
Yes. I'm not sure that I can speak to what ETSU will be doing about their parking specifically, because they do govern themselves. So, but as far as other places in Johnson City, I know that parking comes up a lot when we talk about downtown and finding places to park. The city is going to undertake a parking study specifically for that. To kind of look at what do we have, what are our needs, and how do we kind of ameliorate some of the things that we have.
You want to join us, sir? I had a question. Great, thank you. Please stand next to me. Please tell us who you are and what is your question?
Hi, I'm Leland Calhoun. We live out off of Carroll Creek Road, and we were just wondering what the plans are to improve the Carroll Creek Road. There's a lot of folks out there now on that 2-lane highway.
You're looking at me again.
All right, who wants to dive into that? And I don't want to keep going back to Whitney for everything, but
yeah, I'll start. I mean, obviously, as the community has grown, the pressure on infrastructure, whether it's roads, water, sewer, hospital space, all of that comes into play. Carroll Creek Road is a beautiful road. It's really one of our better roads. I think Carroll Creek Road, where you live, is really right on the border. There's county across the street. You live in the city, so there's you do not live in the city. Yeah, you live in the city. Across the street is county. It's not county. Well, so it's a city road. But we have a lot of roads. We have nearly 1,000 road miles in Washington County that need to be maintained, resurfaced, and improved. Where you live is just an example of how a smaller area through growth, needs to improve the roads. And there's no doubt that we need to improve the roads. It's just very expensive. You don't want to pay lots more taxes to have that happen. But again, in Washington County, we've got a lot of road miles, and there are, as developments take place out there and the traffic increases, it just becomes more difficult. And folks, unfortunately, are not always patient, and they hustle from place to place, and that's just sort of the way we live. But it's important that folks take time and just drive carefully on these roads, because no matter what we do, we're not going to get to all of them at the same time.
Whitney, I want to stay with this conversation for just a moment, because in some communities, as they continue to grow, they look at greater use of mixed retail and residential so people can do some of their shopping where they live. Is that some of the calculus that will figure into the vision going forward?
I would like so, but that really depends on how the community would like to envision itself. So I think there's opportunities for, when it comes to transportation, what I call one less, where you do one less trip. I don't believe that anyone in this room is giving up their car anytime soon. I know I am not. She is lovely, and I love driving her. So but it's kind of like when you get to a spot, can you do one less? So of kind of adopting some of that mentality is how we incorporate. But to answer some of your Carroll Creek question of what is already in city policy, is that when there are new developments, there are certain road improvements that do have to be put into place. But as more residents end up on a particular road, the city does take a look at, is it time for this road to be upgraded? Is it appropriate for this road to also contain sidewalks or additional or a multi-use path? Because of the nature may have changed, because especially with Carroll Creek, I mean, that has been a road that has seen a lot of change.
And I want to follow up on that particular topic, and I want to bring the mayor back into the conversation. So when a developer is putting in a new community, there is a certain expectation, perhaps, that the developer should also contribute or be a part of the process in terms of the infrastructure that goes along with that. It isn't strictly up to the city or the county to do all that, correct?
Developments of a certain size are required to do a transportation impact analysis, and so that becomes a part of their development plan, which is usually like I'm going to get geeky on you, like it's in the subdivision process. Maybe sometimes it's in the rezoning process, but definitely in the subdivision process. So that we ask for certain improvements to be done because they are impacting our infrastructure, our roadway infrastructure.
Anything to add, Joe?
Well, there has been discussion in the last two general sessions in the state about potentially allowing impact fees that developers would pay to improve infrastructure as they make these developments, and so that's a possibility. It hasn't been passed yet, but they are considering it. You know, it gets a lot of pushback from the builders, and in the end of the day, the builders are going to pass those fees on to the people that are buying the homes, which is going to drive the price of the home up. So we already have fairly significant costs in our homes as it is.
This conversation is inspiring our viewers at home. The producer's telling me that social media is blowing up right now. Let's check back in with Caleb. What do you have for us?
Yeah, so folks are asking questions and bringing up a variety of issues. One comment that we've had was one woman said that she can hear Whitney but cannot hear the men. They need to speak up. So I'll chime that in. But let's take a look at some of these. Kayla says, I would love to know how closely they're working with county planners, because it feels like there's a ton of planning being done on how to allow Johnson City to grow without considering how that growth impacts the county as a whole. We have two folks asking about businesses. Karen says, what businesses are needed in our area based on the increase of the population? And Brian says, what is being done to try and attract businesses to our area? I do not mean more small breweries or restaurants, manufacturing, warehousing, and so on. Mark?
That's a great question about businesses, and I know it's something that perhaps goes part and parcel with what you do, Michelle, in terms of you have clients, you're looking at folks who are moving. They want to know, do they have to stand in line to get some sort of product or service, right?
Yes, they do. So what we've seen so far is that the area that's out there currently has supported who has come into the market. Like when I follow up and go back to talk to those clients, they're doing very well. I know Whitney spoke about maybe doing closed, like bringing. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Are you saying mixed use?
Yes,
Okay.
mixed use, which would be the next level. Several of the out-of-state clients do speak about mixed use level. So, but that's.
And that's certainly what communities are looking at elsewhere around the country in terms of the old model of commercial and real estate, retailer over here and residential's over here. They're doing the mixed use so people don't have to jump in their car and go to the supermarket. They can actually walk across the street or leave the condo up to the top floor and come down and there's a shop right there. So that certainly reduces some of the load of the roadways and makes convenience part of the ticket price.
Did I understand the question correctly?
Well, it wasn't so much of a question, just kind of observing that the mixed use of retail and residential in the same location is meant to solve a problem, to have people less in their cars driving to the supermarket. Instead, they can leave their residence and the supermarket is across the street or it's right around the corner because they have everything located there.
Yes.
We're back to the live audience. Please tell us who you are and what is your question?
Dr. Denny from Johnson City to Mayor Grandy. Jonesboro, on a little bit lighter side, is becoming well known for its theatrical productions and is receiving quite a bit of acclaim for that. What's the status on the Jackson Theater renovation?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a project that never seems to want to end, but it's continued to work and hope. The plan is to have that thing open in less than 12 months. There's a lot of, you can see the exterior sort of coming together, and I'd love to be able to take you inside. It's going to be absolutely beautiful. There's a ton of work that continues to go on. They just received another grant that'll help even make it nicer. It's going to be a really great theater. So I know the JRT is looking forward to moving over there to a little larger space and being able to have a grander audience. So stand by. It's going to happen. It's coming. It's going to be really beautiful.
Michelle, I want to bring you back in the conversation. So when people are looking at homes, they just don't think in terms of I need 2,200 square feet. They also look for the culture and the lifestyle and those things that may not be related to employment, but part of the entertainment. That's critical, isn't it, in selling property to people who want to relocate?
Absolutely. Hiking and our nature around here is a big draw for out-of-state clients. They all, when you speak to them, they're like, I cannot believe how nice your community is around here, how accepting they are of us, which congratulations, and I'm happy that I live in a community like that. But definitely your nature, most of them are looking for the convenience of a large city, but the feel of a small hometown when they come to this area.
Whitney, is it your sense they'll be looking at taking advantage of certain features and landscapes in the area to perhaps capitalize on the whole notion of bicycle paths and hiking areas, and perhaps preserving those that already exist and not develop them so that people have that opportunity to get outside and enjoy life?
Overwhelmingly, one of the things that coming up in the conversations we were having with the public, with stakeholder groups, with our advisory committee, was our natural beauty and how easily you can get to our natural beauty. A lot of it is outside the jurisdiction of Johnson City, with the exception of Buffalo Mountain, several of it. And so it's becomes interesting and creative of how do we keep what is within the city, how do we preserve that to make sure that we still have access of, like, extending the Tweetsie Trail, providing more multi-use trails in other parts of the city so that we can kind of get a connected network. And I know the Parks and Rec Department is also working on that as well.
Let's stay with that thought for a moment, because oftentimes we use the phrase information at our fingertips. Would Johnson City consider something unique like building a series of apps so that people can actually, they don't have to go online on their lap book or a notebook or laptop or what have you. They can just look at their phone and find something that's here that they can do, particularly if they're new to the area and they've relocated. Any creativity in that regard?
That sounds wonderful. That sounds like that we wouldn't prohibit that kind of creativity. I know that if you go up to Buffalo Mountain, there's an app for that that you can get online and find out where you are. So we're already doing some of it.
Almost sounds like a great project for Johnson City Schools.
Maybe.
Something creative in terms of thinking how you sell what exists here today for current residents and anyone who comes to visit.
Well, I think that if that was a question, that is one of the things that our board looks at, or the administration looks at, is how do we promote our schools? It's a great school system. One of the things you left out is when people come to a community, they look at schools. And it's one of the draws for our community. Johnson City, and I will leave our friends in Washington County on that. They're not represented. But people look at that. They evaluate schools. Parents are savvy. They're able to go to websites like state website, go to our websites, they go to Niche, they go to different tools, and they use those tools to evaluate and see neighborhoods. Where do you think I might want to put my child in school? And it's a great place. It's a great opportunity for families when they move here and they come to Johnson City.
Michelle, a short while ago we had the post commander of the American Legion Post ask some question about homeless veterans, but let's just broaden the issue in terms of veterans overall. Tennessee has a lot of preferences they give to veterans, with it appears to be a desire to have retired veterans, those who are receiving a retirement check. It's a great opportunity to bring people in who may not have as big a demand on some of the services. They may not have young children in schools. They don't need that. Is there a sense at how much more we can do in order to bring in people who, I hate to say, contribute to the system without taking a whole lot of payout, but that's kind of some of the truth. Veterans can spend a few more dollars and not need as many services perhaps a young family might need.
Yeah. Well, we are blessed with the Mountain Homes Hospital here, and that does attract a lot of veterans to the area. There are several different lender programs out there for veterans. Most home owners that are selling are very open to accept those type of mortgages and plans as well. So,
as I travel around the country, I'm sometimes amazed. I can be somewhere in the Southwest and I'll see an advertisement for, let's say, Michigan, relocate to Michigan. Is East Tennessee doing the same thing? Are they reaching out beyond the borders to perhaps some of those more challenged communities around the country, perhaps in the Northeast, some of the urban markets, who it might be people and businesses who are looking to relocate to something of a more comfortable lifestyle, perhaps less threatening? Tennessee Realtors, are they doing anything?
Not that I'm aware of at this time that we do anything in that area. We usually partner with Johnson City or Washington County. I mean, we have a lot of realtors that participate in those type of areas to attract more to it. I mean, we have so many that sit on different boards and things of that nature to draw in.
And is the Tennessee Office of Economic Development, Joe, doing a lot more, or should it be doing a lot more in terms of attracting certainly some businesses to this area? I noticed that on their website they include one location in Washington County, which is that 22-acre parcel out in, I forget the name of the area, but you know what I'm referring to, where all the automotive plants are located right now, automotive-related plants. So they're promoting that as certified for development. But can the state be doing more to attract people to Washington County in this area?
Well, I'll just say that the state is supportive. Sometimes we get leads on businesses looking to relocate to this market through the state, but most of the time we get those leads from site selectors that we actively go out and pursue. So our county commission has been very responsive and supportive in continuing to contribute to our industrial park. And so one of the things that we have been able to do, leveraging the state economic development money, is to build out state raw land and build it into pad-ready sites. And so we just really last week completed a 38-acre tract that was developed into 2 pad-ready sites. They'll be certified. We've already had the application in. They'll hit the website once they're certified. And this is the type of thing that business owners looking to relocate focus on, because they can come in, start their construction almost immediately, and don't have to wait for a cow pasture to be developed into a pad-ready site. So we really are ahead of the game. We have several sites there, several more on the way, and the state is very supportive to us with grant funding to help us do that. And our local government officials are very supportive to add the match component it takes to make that all work.
We're back to the live audience. I believe we have a follow-up on an earlier question about infrastructure. Sir, would you please like to follow up with your question?
Sure. Whitney, you had addressed earlier about sewage and water and waste management, but I did not hear any kind of response to what we're doing about the medical facilities that are already at or beyond capacity in Johnson City.
I am not sure I can answer that question, mostly because that is outside of outside of what a city would regulate. We are in a great, at least in a great position that we do have hospitals. We are a community that has a medical school and a pharmacy school, and that's super unique. So as far as what comes as far as capacity, I don't know that I could really speak to that intelligently.
Well, maybe going forward, maybe that's something that News 5 and Fox 39 may think about. If we have a follow-up event, maybe to include some of our healthcare providers in the community who can be a part of this conversation and share what the plans are going forward. That could be a great idea. You know, something else that hasn't really come up yet, we've talked a lot about primary and secondary school, but this area has some great 2- and 4-year colleges. To his credit, we had a senior at ETSU come up and ask a question. Credit to him that he would come to an event like this with old folks and ask some tough questions. Can we do more to capitalize on those young adults to perhaps keep them here or to attract younger families who may be thinking in terms of, I've got kids in primary school, one day I want to send them off to college and not assume large amounts of debt. I can send them to some great schools that are affordable. Steve, any thoughts?
Love that question. I was thinking about following up from what Mayor Grandy said. We have a TCAT, which is a regional school in Elizabethton. The state of Tennessee helped Washington County with that investment of the TCAT satellite program that's in Boones Creek. It's in Washington County, easier to drive. It's one of those things we studied for several years and were asking for and planning for, because if you think about it, if you go to the west end of the county and different parts of the city, it's hard to get to the east side of Elizabethton. It's a lot easier. You can get on a transit bus, you can get there in car, and adding programming at the satellite there at Boones Creek for TCAT, which is Tennessee College of Applied Technology. And we also have Northeast State Community College. We're actually taking our school board on their winter workshop out to Northeast State. They have a brand new technology department, technology building. It's a fantastic resource for this area. It's a great place for parents who have students who are graduating to think about going. And we also have an increase in our dual enrollment during high school in our region for students taking dual credit with TCAT in Northeast State and ETSU, so they can have those college credits and make it cheaper for them when they go to college and make it a quicker process to get to a certificate or to a degree. So I really appreciate that question.
And I'd like to add a little something to it, because you talked about kind of a young class and kind of that cohort. And I have been educated by the chamber a lot about, we have that cohort now. It exists and it's growing. So there are young families, there are people who are at ETSU or are coming in from different places that may have been schooled in North Carolina that really see our area as a place to raise families or just to hang out and enjoy a cool vibe.
At the risk of putting my own job at jeopardy, how can the media do a better job of partnering with the various stakeholders? Because one of the concerns is maybe the communication isn't as good as it can be. Can we all do a better job of informing the public of what currently exists? It may answer some questions already there without having to make it a mystery. What more can not just News 5, but everybody else in the media world do in terms of providing the information of what products and services and plans exist today? Anyone want to care to weigh in?
I'll start.
Please.
I actually think the media in our area does a really great job of getting things out. There was a story that our consultants for the comprehensive plan said that just by going online or it being in the press, just me, just going on television, our online presence shot up that day. because that's kind of the community that we have. We have a really responsive community, and I think we should be proud of that. When it comes to the things that media can help do, is there's a lot of, they're tedious, but little surveys where the city needs your feedback, and it's important for all the voices to get out there and to provide it. Like right now, you can participate in how you would like to see Buffalo Mountain, kind of how that may evolve into something different than what it is today. What do you need out there? There are ways that you can get email lists with the city as well. And so partnering with media to get that kind of stuff out is really helpful. And I've seen the advantages of kind of the great relationships that exist right now.
Just make certain it gets to News 5 and Fox 39 first.
Always.
All right, we're back to the live audience. We're going to find out what's on this gentleman's mind, and then going to check back in with social media because they're on fire at home. Sir, please tell us who you are and what is your question?
My name is Brian Lozon. I'm with the American Legion here in Johnson City, and I'm a veteran. So after traveling around the world for about 35 years or so, we decided that it's time to settle down. And so the reason we came here to Johnson City and to Washington County is because of the beautiful climate that we have. So I'm an immigrant, okay? I'm not from here. We moved in here because of all the facilities you had. Yes, the VA center was a key factor, but then when you look around, there's 4 other hospitals, there's 4 educational advanced schooling here. I mean, there's a lot that we offer here. But one thing I wanted to just point out is that, yes, we do have a problem with homeless, okay? But I just want to comment that, we had that bad weather a week ago, and it got really down into the teens and got into single digits a couple of nights. And the Salvation Army and some of the churches, and they kind of pulled together and took care of those individuals. So I often think of with my experience in the military was that the 97% of the people do the right thing most of the time. We always have 3%. You see them on the news. You see them in the, being escorted by the sheriff or whatever. So we always have that 3%. And I think there's a misconception about our homeless people. They're not awful people. They're good people. But like all of the others, those folks that we interface with on while we're driving, those that 3% that irritates us, that 3% that makes it look bad for the rest of the folks. But here in Johnson City, they all kind of stepped up, and we took care of those people over that cold weather. And if you hear the rain now, so it means there's going to be some cold weather coming behind it.
And your question is?
My question is that I just want to give a compliment, really, that you've got some good things going here in Johnson City. And so despite all the things that we need to work on, we've got some good things going as well.
Well, thank you for that great comment. And speaking of comments, our viewers at home want to be a part of this before we wrap. So let's check back in with Caleb. What's the latest?
Yeah, Mark, we have some folks asking a lot of questions about various topics related to the population growth. Let's take a look at some of those. Seth asked the question again that we about healthcare and hospital capacity. That's still something that folks are concerned about. Betty is asking, there are a lot of people who grew up in the Tri-Cities, yet they can't afford homes here because of people moving from other states who are driving housing cost up. How do you plan to keep local people local? And I understand that we have an expert here with some good data on where folks are coming from, that maybe we can get a better understanding there. And then Brian also brings up the issue of young people again, but in a kind of a different perspective. He says, we have so many graduates every year from ETSU. What is being done in the jobs arena to keep the graduates from leaving the area for jobs that pay more appropriately for their education levels? Mark?
Great question about where are the people coming from, and we happen to have an expert here who's got the numbers. Please tell us who you are, and can you address that topic that Caleb had mentioned about where are the people coming from?
Yes, excuse me, I'm Don Finley. I'm working on the data right now for 2023. And for Washington County, unfortunately, I haven't broken it down to Johnson City yet, but we're seeing an in-migration about where it was last year. North side of 600 new residents. Chief donor state is Florida, followed by Texas, North Carolina, and Washington State. Average age is 53. That's that's the capsule vision of where they're coming from.
That sounds a lot more like people moving in their final years for retirement, doesn't it?
Not really. When you have an average of 53, you have an awful lot below that. The migration is actually younger than we originally thought it was for the entire region. In fact, it's young enough to where it's moved our median age down. It's younger. I don't see younger in the mirror when I look at it, but that's what the census tells us. So it's a good mix. It's a good mix.
Well, thank you, young fella, for that information. We certainly appreciate that. We're almost out of time, and I want to get a couple of thoughts here. Certainly, I think the case has been made that perhaps there should be some future event that involves the healthcare partners to answer the questions that exist and perhaps hear some of the concerns that are out there. Any closing thoughts, Steve? Because I know schools are the one thing that people get nervous about. You've mentioned you've got some capacity, but there are more people coming into town.
That's right. So we need to continue to plan, and the master plan at Science Hill really at this point is one of the most important parts of that. And it's with a group that's been hired to do that for us because we need to look at parking. We talked about parking at ETSU, parking at Science Hill is a major issue. So we need to look at that. Traffic flow, safety in the type of campus that we have, but that capacity number. What is the capacity at that school? And then as a community, what do we want to do going forward? So we'll continue. We'll circle back with those questions after that study is completed. But, when you look at it, I could have probably told you by the students that we're adding to our school district and the employees that we're hiring in the school district where people are coming from, a lot from Texas, Florida, West Coast, and also the Northeast.
Okay, we've really run out of time here, so we're going to have to leave that as the final word. So for a long time, Johnson City was known as Little Chicago, not for the best of reasons, but that's in the past as this community continues to move forward, providing opportunities for everyone. We certainly hope you found some of the answers you were seeking from your questions from tonight's event. We're continuing the conversation on our Facebook page. Please join us at facebook.com/news5WCYB. On behalf of my colleague, Caleb Perney, the panelists, the live audience here, the fantastic crew of News 5 and Fox 39, thank you at home for joining us here at the Langston Center in Johnson City. In closing, we'd like to salute our military, law enforcement, firefighters, EMTs, and other emergency personnel for their service to our communities and our nation. I'm Mark Hyman. Good night.